Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1249, 1249, Thursday, September 24th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so the report from Grassley and Johnson's committees in the Senate was released yesterday, and it reveals a lot of very troubling things. Some things that to me sound, at the very least, that would be certainly make conflicts of interest. And there's some things here that appear to me that they would be illegal. Of course, you can read a summary of this report just about anywhere online. It's everywhere, so I'm sure many of you have already checked that out. For those of you who haven't, I will go over some of the more ones I found most damaging in the report. So let's just go through some of these things. So we found out that George Kent, remember him? He testified in the so-called Ukraine impeachment hearings. George Kent raised concerns about Hunter Biden to Joe Biden's office staff about the possible conflict of interest of Hunter sitting on the Burisma board, and the concerns that he brought forward were never addressed. In 2015, a senior State Department official named Amos Hochstein raised concerns with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden personally about Hunter's role on the board of Burisma. Concerns were never addressed. John Kerry. Now here's a crime. John F. Kerry, who by the way served in Vietnam, was asked about Hunter Biden's role on the Burisma board. He was testifying to Congress under oath at the time, and John Kerry lied. John Kerry said that he had no knowledge, didn't know anything about Hunter Biden and his role on the Burisma board. However, there is a document or two that clearly show evidence to the contrary. In other words, John F. Kerry, who by the way served in Vietnam, was lying, and he was under oath at the time. Do you think that John F. Kerry will be charged with lying to Congress? No. That's the short answer. The long answer is also no. Now, let's see. Hunter, of course, we knew about this even before it was released. This is one of the things that was talked about, and now we have, of course, the documents to prove it, that Hunter was on the board he was on the board as a Burisma official. He was on the board of Burisma when a Burisma official paid $7 million bribe to officials serving under the Ukrainian prosecutor. Well, you can't get any more direct bribery than that, paying off the damn prosecutor's office with a $7 million bribe to make the investigation go away. That is definitely a crime. We have Hunter receiving a $3.5 million wire transfer from Alina Baturina. She is the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. He received a $3.5 million wire transfer from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. Does that sound like Russia collusion to you? Man, oh man. It also shows Hunter's association with the Chinese communist that resulted in millions of dollars in cash flow for Hunter and his friends. Hunter paid non-resident women who were nationals of Russian or other Eastern European countries who appear to be linked to Eastern European prostitution or human trafficking. That would definitely be a crime. Oh man. And there's much more. You got to go have a look at it, read the summary. It's just absolutely breathtaking that this information has been known for quite some time. This information would certainly have been known to that ambassador to the Ukraine. It should have been known by Vendeman and all these people who testified in the so-called impeachment hearings on Ukraine. Yovanovitch and all these people, they would have known every bit of this. Yet not a single one of these people, as far as I can remember, during the hearings ever asked them about any of this. And they're walking around free as a bird. Yet they knew all this. And more. Oh, there's much more. Like I say, I'm just kind of wetting your whistle. You got to go take a look at the summary and read it for yourself. Can you imagine if it would have been, if you'd replaced Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, replaced their names with President Trump and Trump Jr.? What would be going on today? All over the media. They would be calling for Trump and Trump's head and Trump Jr. to be, hanged. They would do an impeachment. There would be investigations. The media would be going absolutely insane. Yet, if you took a look at all the major left-wing media outlets today, you would have found that very few even mentioned this document release, and the ones who did chalked it up to rehashed conspiracy theories that have already been debunked, and Russian conspiracy theories. That's right. There you go. Now, certainly with what I read, that should certainly trigger, at the very least, an internal investigation with the Inspector General. But it really, I mean, you're talking about crimes here. You're talking about some fairly serious crimes. And so the Department of Justice should certainly investigate that. But the problem is, with the Department of Justice investigating, is that the people at the DOJ are deep state plants. They're not going to investigate, and even if they did, they're not going to find anything. The fix is in. Now we know why the demo commies and their allies are so bold and brazen about the crimes that they commit. Because they've known all along something we never could have imagined, which is that they don't care. They're never ever going to be held accountable for any of their crimes. They can do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want, and they're never held accountable. That's why it's imperative that Attorney General Barr and John Durham prosecute to the fullest extent of the law the Spygate coup plotters. And they should also be looking into this. They need to start charging these people with crimes. They committed crimes. Attorney General Barr said he wants equal justice under the law. Yes, that would be equal justice under the law. If you break the law, you are charged with crimes. But I get this impression sometimes when I watch Barr that he always says, well, we're not going to get into political tit for tat. And I agree. You don't want to do what they did, which is to use the Department of Justice, the FBI, or whatever, to conjure up fake investigations and use the government as a political weapon against your political enemies. But charging people with actual crimes who committed crimes is not an act of political retribution. That is equal justice under the law. Charging people with crimes who committed crimes is not political retribution. It's not politicizing the DOJ. It's following the law. It's charging people with the crimes if they committed them. That's called equal justice under the law. So what we have, and what it certainly appears to me and to many of you, I'm sure, is that the deep staters can commit crimes and go unpunished. But if you're on the right or you're in any way associated with Trump, anything you do, even if it's not a crime, can be pursued and investigated. That's the reality of where we are right now. That's why Barr and Durham absolutely must take care of business. We've lost this country. I mean, what I just read to you, if any one of these things would have been Trump and Trump Jr., it would be all over. It would be all over. And things are very badly out of whack. And I honestly don't know what you do in the short term, because you're talking about a Department of Justice, the FBI, the State Department, all the various bureaucracies within the federal government that have all been completely poisoned. You're talking about tens of thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands if you want to add it all up. And I don't know how you go in and just, short of just abolishing these agencies and starting over, I don't know what you do. They're career government employees. Even to try to get one of them pushed out or fired, you probably have to go through the Federal Employees Union. You would be tied up in arbitration for years just to get rid of one of them. I mean, they've literally created an establishment stronghold that is almost impenetrable. I don't know how you would even go about, correcting this issue. I'm not sure how it's done. I have an idea, though, that one thing that you could do that could put a pretty good dent in it is you could actually hold people accountable to make them think twice about what they're doing. And you could put into place a law. You could put into place a law, if you're Attorney General Barr, that says, if in fact we catch you doing any of these types of things, you will automatically be charged with such and such a crimes which carry these penalties, serious penalties. People are going to have to go to jail. That's the only answer to the problem here. It's not really a long-term solution. It's not a total solution to the problem, but at least ways maybe it'll make some people think twice before they get involved in these types of crimes. But right now, they have complete carte blanche to go ahead and commit whatever crimes they want. I mean, if they can get away with it in 2016, what is going to stop them in 2020 or 2024 or 2028? Nothing. That's why it's absolutely imperative. Barr and Durham really have no choice. And that's frightening. That's frightening. Because as much as I would like to have that kind of confidence, and Barr says a lot of the right types of things, and Durham has a background that would suggest that he's a legit dude, but, the clock is ticking. And the corrupt people are still there. And they're still capable of doing a lot of things. And, I surely do hope that in the next couple of days, some measure is taken by Barr and Durham to indict a couple of these people, put out a report and explain what did happen, and then that investigation, once Trump's reelected, should continue on into the new year, and they should get them all, and they should serve serious jail time for what they did. Gonna have to get the truth out. You're gonna have to hold people accountable, or we've lost the country. Simple as that. Now, Trump has recently put up quite a few nominations for some new people, which is good. One of those people, kind of a standout, is the person he's nominating for the new Inspector General of the Intelligence Committee. Of course, you remember he fired Michael Atkinson, who we know that he was involved up to his eyeballs in the Ukraine impeachment hoax, withholding a lot of documents, involved in a lot of corruption, a hardcore anti-Trumper. He seems to have skipped out as well. That's another guy that should be brought in ankle chains. But Trump, at least ways, is nominating Alan Souza. And Souza was the former aide to Devin Nunes's House Intel Committee. Of course, he does have to be confirmed by the Senate, so we will have to see how that goes. But he will replace Michael Atkinson as the ICIG. The guy that's there currently is the acting, so he'll be stepping aside once the new ICIG is confirmed by the Senate. Alan Souza, everything that I can see about Souza seems to suggest that he's a straight shooter. Again, he was on the Devin Nunes, the House Republican Intel Committee. He was an aide, one of the top aides, helping to run a lot of the investigations that Nunes has been working on. And he worked pretty close with Kash Patel. I think he's been given a thumbs up by Rick Grinnell and some other people I trust. So that would be good to get Alan Sousa confirmed by the Senate to be the new ICIG. That's some good news there. But we need more. We need Atkinson himself to be held accountable for his crimes. And they need to go back and take a look at that whole Ukraine impeachment. Sharamella, Colonel Vendeman, and that whole crew. Of course, this is, we just talked about the Ukraine stuff at the top of the video. Remember that Newland, Samantha Power, the Rotten Reverend, John F. and Kerry, Kathleen Kvalik, quite a few of those top senior State Department officials would have known about everything that we just talked about regarding Hunter and Joe Biden and Burisma and the whole 9 yards in Ukraine. So Ukraine is it's a gold mine if you want to go digging there. Again, it was key in the origins of the Trump-Russia hoax. We know going all the way back to 2015 is when the DNC operative Alexander Chalupa started cooking all this stuff up. That's how Manafort was brought into the game and put on the shelf, and that's where a lot of this started, and it went on from there. A lot of the origins of a lot of the things that went down are in Ukraine. Ukraine needs to be thoroughly unearthed on both sides, and there's a lot to learn and a lot to know. And I know Durham is looking to some extent into Ukraine, but it needs to be a very deep dive, because there you will find, if you're looking for the origins of Spygate, you can't help but get into Ukraine, because there's a lot was going on there that's very key. So anyway, we will continue to see if there's any fallout from this. And you know what? Even with the documented evidence to support all of the things that are in this report that came out from Grassley and Johnson, even with that, I would not be the least bit surprised to see that none of the debate moderators even bring it up. But that's okay, because I can absolutely assure you that Trump is going to bring it up in the debates. That appears to be everything we have for today. I know it's thoroughly maddening, but if you haven't Googled this up to go take a look at a summary of the Johnson-Grassley report, take a look at it. It's very eye-opening. And just try to imagine, as you're reading any of these things that are backed up by documented evidence, just imagine if any one of these claims were made about Trump and Trump Jr., what we'd be looking at. Just so you get an idea how bad it is. And, the media plays a very, very important role in our republic. That's why our founding fathers gave them so much latitude, gave them, the ability to have special privileges that the rest of us do not have. Because even though the press viciously attacked Washington, Jefferson, of course, John Adams actually introduced the Alien and Sedition Act and threw reporters in jail for writing fake news about him. So John Adams didn't have a very thick skin, for those of you who don't know much about John Adams. But they went after Washington, Adams, certainly Monroe during the War of 1812. He took a beating. Every one of our founders, Andrew Jackson, Abraham Lincoln got destroyed in the press. Of course, he too took actions against the fake news. And, Woodrow Wilson did the same during World War I when they were criticizing him for getting in the war. He also locked up some journalists. So it's not, unprecedented that that's happened. And I think that maybe we have reached that point. I think it's critical that as Durham and Barr, and God willing, they will tell the truth. They will hold these people accountable to the full extent of the law, put these people in jail for the crimes they committed, and they're serious crimes. But I hope in the middle of all that, in the midst of all that, I hope they do not forget to point out what the media's role was in all of this. It needs to be known. The media needs to be, as much as anyone, exposed as part of the coup plot. It needs to be known by the whole country, by the world, exactly how corrupt and how complicit the media was. It's not just about the plotters and the FBI and the CIA and God knows where else and who else, but also the role that the media played and the role that they continue to play to this day. And if there's any way that you can hold these so-called reporters accountable for being part of a conspiracy, and I would think that if you can find the reporter knew that he was getting leaked information from the government, that the reporter knew was only being used to propagate a fake investigation for the purposes of removing the president, to me, if I can tie reporters to the coup plot, I charge them with crimes as being part of the coup plotters. I think the likelihood of that is, very, very low, very low. But I do hope that in getting the truth out about what happened, that they don't forget to point out the critical role that the media played. They need to take a beating on this. I doubt any of them will be sent to jail, but at the very least, the role, and they need to call people out, specific reporters, specific newspapers, magazines, websites, whatever, need to be called out. And their reputations need to be completely destroyed. Maybe putting them out of business is the best we can do, but that's what we should do. These reporters who were involved in this should never be taken seriously as reporters again. It should be career ending for any of them who are involved in this. And for these large media organizations, those large media organizations should be bankrupt. And I think that they should lose any privileges they previously had. In fact, I definitely think it's time to go back and revisit the privileges. The media was given certain privileges. Along with those privileges, there was a responsibility. They have, in my mind, they have been involved in things which justify removing those privileges and treating them just like any other person, any other journalist. No more special treatment. So that's where we are. Again, I do believe, my gut still continues to tell me that something is percolating, and that before the end of the month, that Barr and Durham are going to come out with, at the very least, a fairly damning report. I think it'll also be telling us that the investigation continues, but I do think that it would be helpful and would put more teeth in the report if, in fact, there were indictments to accompany the report. And we'll just have to keep watching. But I know for a lot of you, like me, your patience ran out a long, long time ago. I'm beyond the point of running out of patience. I ran out of patience a year ago. More than that. It's a strange feeling. I mean, it's a feeling of like helplessness. It's like you're watching an accident happening right in front of your eyes, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's just amazing to, I wonder a lot of times if we would all be better off if we didn't know any of this. If we just were some of those people that don't pay any attention and just went on with our lives and didn't pay any attention to this kind of stuff. But good or bad, for whatever reason, we are not people who are like that. We are people who, we think this stuff matters, and we do pay attention, and we do think it's important. And that, I guess, is a burden that we all have. A lot of times I wish I didn't know all this stuff. And I wish it didn't bother me. But it does, and it bothers me a lot. And like I said, to say that my patience is running out is not even a correct statement, because my patience ran out a long time ago. And I guess my biggest fear is that when enough of the country believes that there is no more a rule of law, that's when people just begin to take law into their own hands. And that's what I don't want, because we all know where that leads, and that's not the type of country any of us want to live in. So, a lot riding on Barr and Durham. I think they know that. When you listen to Barr talk, you certainly get the impression he understands the gravity of the situation here. But we don't know what he knows. And so it makes it very hard, if you're one of us, to sit back and continue to day after day after day after day see this kind of crap that we see coming out from this report from the Johnson-Grassley Committee, knowing good and well that if this were Trump and Trump Jr., as soon as this information was known, the investigation would have started. There would already be many indictments, witnesses subpoenaed, SWAT raids, everything. And we just don't see that happening on the other side. And it's disheartening, and it's frustrating, maddening. But the only hope we have is Barr and Durham. But as I've said before, if in fact they don't produce, and I mean really produce, then I think Trump should call him into his office and say, well, you know, why don't you guys go ahead and start working on some other things? I've decided to go ahead and pursue this investigation into what happened with the Presidential Commission of people who I'm going to appoint. And I'm going to get to the bottom of it, because obviously you guys can't. So go on and do something else. Mr. Durham, you're free to go. Back to Connecticut. Do whatever you do. Mr. Barr, while I'm considering your replacement, go play some golf. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate, assuming there's something to report. See ya. Bye.